KC and the Sunshine Band and Give It Up. Now, I know we're celebrating a lot of centenaries this year, but next, we're going to look forward to one that's coming up in 2021. Local man Nathan Morley from Grimsby has written a book that's, since its release last week, has already been reviewed in Soldier, LBC London, and upcoming in Best of British magazine and Sixth Sense. So he's doing rather well, is our Nathan. And it's all about the Naafi and the Naval Canteen Service and the impact it's had on servicemen and women. So earlier on, I caught up with Nathan to find out all about his new book.
Altogether, it's took about 3 years because there was a lot of research involved and travel as well, because the Naafi operated in just about every country of the world. Wherever the British forces have been, the Naafi were with them. So it took me on a few journeys, primarily to Europe, Germany, Malta, Crete, places like that, Cyprus, and of course the United Kingdom. So all in all, it actually was a longer project than I anticipated, but around 3 years, which I was quite happy with.
Oh, wow. You went to some amazing places as well, so, sounds like a lot of fun. And I want to ask you, every serviceman and woman remembers the Naafi for its tea and buns, but it was more than that, wasn't it? Is it true that sometimes the canteen staff actually joined in the fighting?
Absolutely, yeah, and it is one of those points which isn't remembered by many people. They always think of Naafi as being like the tea trolley, but it wasn't. In places like Crete during the German invasion, the Naafi literally grabbed their machine guns. It was the same in the trenches in the First World War. Naafi were often in the front lines, and in many other locations they literally joined their customers, so to speak, in the battle. And there are a lot of veterans who remember the tail end of the Second World War. That's, certainly after Dunkirk and D-Day, Naafi were always there. Wherever the forces were, they were there, and if there was trouble, they would muck in too.
Roll your sleeves up and get mucked in.
Yeah.
So I know there's a story about a teenage kitchen boy from Naafi actually changing the entire course of World War II. What happened with that?
It's an amazing story, and it's so frustrating that it's not that well known, because the entire course of Britain's history was actually changed by a teenage Naafi employee. His name was Tommy Brown. He was working on a ship called the HMS Petard, which was sailing through the Mediterranean in 1942. They had a little battle with a German U-boat, a submarine, which they managed to bring to the surface. As the U-boat crew were jumping out, they were bailing out, Tommy and two crew members got into the submarine, and I'm sure you've heard of the Enigma machine. Well, they saw an Enigma machine and its code books, and they brought the code books back up. They were sent to Britain, and within a few months, these code books provided the answers to all of Germany's secret plans. And suddenly, the war started turning in Britain's direction, because we could see what the Germans were planning and what they were doing next. And this was all a young Naafi kid who never really got the recognition he deserved.
What was his name?
His name was Tommy Brown. He was from the northeast, and sadly he died in a house fire in 1945, so he was still only a teenager. But his story is only becoming known with the interest in the past few years in Bletchley Park, the listening station, and of course more and more people are interested in this period of British history, the Second World War. But for 50, 60 years, nobody had ever heard of the guy.
No, I mean, I'd never heard of him until you just said then, Nathan. I mean, you must.
Well, I'm glad to put the record straight with him, because I think he does deserve a pat on the back.
You're giving him the recognition he deserves.
Yeah.
So I know you must have spoke to so many people in order to gather all of the research for your book, but is it true that you spoke to a lady who's 95 and she had some amazing memories that she could still recall?
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And I always find this, and I know you probably do too with the interviews you do on the radio, it's sometimes the older members of the public or of research projects where I get the the most incredible memories. And I spoke to a woman called Eve Diet in her 90s, as you just said, who was talking to me as if she was actually in the Naafi and we were there back in the late 40s. And she gave some wonderful accounts of what it was like to work, in the kitchens on army barracks during the Korean War, and basically painted a really beautiful picture of what life was like during national service. And that's included in the book. I didn't want to originally include so much from that period, the late 40s, early 50s, but actually I thought, my goodness me, that she was giving us so much material that which we would have omitted otherwise, that it turned out to be one of the star interviews of the whole book.
Wow, where did you find Eve?
Well, Eve, believe it or not, wrote a little account of her time at Naafi, and she was a land girl as well in the war, and she had some incredible experiences, and she decided to publish a little ebook on Amazon. A little unknown thing which was unnoticed, and I was sniffing around and I thought to myself, she can't possibly still be alive. So I contacted the local newspaper where she lived, a little bit of digging, and I phoned her up, and there she was. And she's still thankfully with us, and I've just got her copy of the book, actually.
Bless her. What was the book called? Can you remember, Nathan? I need to have
a
look at that.
Yes, it was called, and I say this from the top of my memory, it was called The Diary of a Naafi Girl by Eve Diet, and it is quite a good yarn. It really is a nice read because it's a first-person account. Basically, she's just saying, this was my day-to-day life, and she writes beautifully, and it is a really nice, it's a nice little read.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Bless Eve. Now,
Yes,
Nathan, I know there's a famous tale about Tommy Cooper and his fez at the Naafi. What happened with that?
Oh, well, look, Naafi also ran an organisation called ENSA, which was it was an entertainment organisation. A lot of your listeners may remember ENSA from their own army days. They basically entertained the troops in the field. A lot of the stars of the day, Arthur Askey, George Formby, Vera Lynn, Gracie Fields. Vera Lynn's in the book as well, by the way. Wow. And they were out entertaining. On one particular occasion, a young Tommy Cooper used to do an act where he would wear a helmet, a little army act. He was doing it in Egypt. But somebody had nicked his helmet, so he borrowed the fez from a waiter in the Naafi, and the rest is history. He was getting such laughs wearing this little red fez that he kept it for the rest of his life, and there we are. We have a showbiz legend born in the canteen. So
that's where the fez came from. I did often wonder. I never knew why he ended up with that fez. But now I know.
Yeah, it came from the Naafi.
So Nathan, have you got any more plans to write any more books, or are you done now?
Oh, no, I will keep writing because that's really pretty much what I do. I have a few unfinished manuscripts. I'm working on one now, which is a real beautiful history of it's another old subject. It's a history of Radio Luxembourg, which was a great station in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in Britain. And during the production of that, I was talking with lots of the old stars of the time, Teddy Johnson and Pearl Carr and Noel Edmonds and Tony Blackburn and Pete Murray. So but that's a really nice yarn down memory lane. There's a lot of old musical stars, Connie Francis as well, and Vera Lynn in that too. So that's the next project, but I'm taking it easy on that, slowly.
So the book you have just released, Nathan, remind us what it's called and where we can get hold of a copy.
It's called Canteen Army, the Naafi story, and it's available now. Probably the best place to go would be on Amazon. You can get it in paperback or as a Kindle. It's also available in other online bookshops as well. And basically it tells the story of a much-loved part of the British Army and British history, but which hasn't been told before.
Wonderful stuff. Nathan, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck with the rest of your writing.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Really great to talk to you.
That's Nathan Morley talking about his new book, Canteen Army, the Naafi story, available on Amazon now.